Did you know the music you're hearing right now is based around just one simple chord? Same for this blues and this jazz. In this video, I'm going to make the case that the humble C chord might just be the most important shape on the guitar. Now, if you're thinking I'm crazy, then I promise you're about to learn a lot, because understanding the C shape really does open up a whole new dimension. And if you're into blues or jazz, then it might just be the most important chord to take your playing up to the next level. Let's start by seeing how we can move the C chord around the neck. The first thing we can do to our standard C chord is add our little finger here at the 3rd fret on the high E. Now, given that we naturally mute the low E, the only open string we're left with is this G in the middle. So now we can take this shape anywhere on the guitar neck that this G fits. Now, bearing in mind that the root note is here on the A string, the obvious place to start might be here at the 10th fret, this G. So there we get a G chord. Then if we come down to the 5th fret, this D, we get a D chord. Now this time the F sharp in the D beats against the G. Pretty horrible on its own, but within the chord it's actually pretty nice. So this is technically a D add 11 chord. So now we've got a G, a D and a C, 3 chords that will always go together. Then we could also use it here at the 6th fret, where the G now becomes the major 3rd in an E flat chord, and then again at the 8th fret, where that G becomes the 9th in an F add 9 chord. So now putting these chords together, we can play something like this. Now let's take that open G out of the equation and get some more sophisticated sounds. If we want sophistication, then the major 7 chord is a good starting point. And there's 2 ways we can do this. Firstly, let's take our standard C chord and put our little finger on the 4th fret of the G string here, which gives us that B note, the major 7th. Now we have a major 7 chord we can use all over the neck. Now, these top 2 notes here are going to sound bad together in isolation, but having this dissonance within the chord creates a lot of interest. So now I'll play through a progression using only this 4-note shape, and just hear how I'm getting tones which go well beyond what you'd expect from a basic C chord. Another way we can play a C major 7 chord is simply by taking away our first finger and leaving that B string open. Then we can use that finger to play a hammer-on or pull-off. Now in this chord we can also hammer on the D string, and also on the A string I like to hammer on from the note below, so from the B up to a C like this. So then let's take a look at how we can move this around the guitar neck. So it can be a bit tricky to get straight into a C-shaped bar chord like this, and using these hammer-ons not only makes it easier, but helps us add movement to our playing. So if I wanted to get into this D chord here, what I could do is approach from the note below the D and hammer on, and then let the bar form after that. So on the D string, hammer on, and then I've got my major 7th hammer on and pull off on the B string. Something like this. We can move this concept anywhere on the guitar, so I'll just play through a basic progression of D up to G and just hear how much mileage we can get from this approach. Next up, let's get into some blues. Now for blues we generally use dominant 7 chords, and the C shape is the perfect fit. Back to our basic C chord, and to make this a dominant 7, all we need to do is add our little finger here at the 3rd fret on the G string. This adds a B flat, the flat 7 to the chord. Now if we ignore the 2 E strings, we can play this shape anywhere on the guitar. The Beatles use this chord a lot, so it gives immediate blues pop kind of vibes, and a common way to use it would be to play your 1 chord in the E shape as usual, like this A here, and then the 4 chord and 5 chord, this D and E, play in the C shape, and you get something like this. But what about those really sexy blues chords? Well, let's take this a step further and turn this C7 into a C7 add 9. So to do this, we want this C note on the B string to come up 2 frets to a D, the 9th of the chord. So the fingering we can use is like this. Second finger on our root note of C, 3rd fret of the A string, then first finger on the E, 2nd fret of the D string, and then third finger, 3rd fret of the G string, B flat, our flat 7, and then 4th finger on that 9th, the 3rd fret of the B string. Now we'll definitely come back to this fingering later, but there's another one I want to show you where we simply bar across the top 3 strings with our 3rd finger like this. And this fingering is even more flexible and gives us an extra note. Now this chord is great for adding some chromatic movement to your progressions. So let's say I was playing the end of a 12 bar in A, so I'd be coming to the 5 chord and I'd be up here at the 7th fret with this shape, an E7 add 9, and then down to the D7 add 9, and then back to A. Now what I could do is chromatically approach the E from the F above like this, using this shape. And then same again with the D from the E flat above. And then back to my A. So take a listen. But this chord gives us even more options. For example, let's try putting our little finger up 2 frets on the high E. This adds in a 13th. Now we can come on and off of this note to add extra movement. And then if we're feeling really adventurous, the top 3 strings you can slide up 2 frets and back down again. So let me play around a basic 5-4-1 progression to show these ideas in action. But of course, we can't talk about blues without mentioning the Hendrix chord, the dominant 7, sharp 9. Now remember when we added the 9th to our C7 chord using this fingering? Now this time we want to raise that 9th by 1 semitone by bringing this D on the B string up 1 fret to D sharp, giving us a C7 sharp 9 chord. Now this chord has both the major third of E in it and then this D sharp, which is really the same as an E flat, which is the minor third from a C minor chord. So this chord has the sense of being both major and minor at the same time. It works really well in the middle of the guitar, and Hendrix often used it as an E. I really like to chromatically slide into it from below as well. So here's a 12 bar I put together using this dominant 7 sharp 9 chord. And even though I'm playing pretty basic blues licks, hear how this chord gives it a whole different vibe to your average blues. So now you've seen how the C shape is essential for blues, let's take it one step further with some jazz. Firstly, take a listen to this 2-5-1 progression and then I'll break it down on the guitar. So what you just heard was essentially a couple of times round a 2-5-1 in D major, E minor, A, and D. But played like this, it doesn't really sound like jazz, so we need some more sophisticated chords, which is where the C shape comes in. So far we've only been playing major chords, but now let's look at how the C shape can function as a minor as well. So to make this chord a minor, we need to change this E down to an E flat, but with this standard chord, it isn't really possible, or certainly very tricky. So remember earlier when we played a C7 add 9 like this, Well, with this shape, it's pretty easy to slip the first finger down 1 fret to the E flat, giving us C minor 7 add 9. Now this is a great way to play minor chords, especially in jazz. Now, if I move this up to the 7th fret, I have E minor 7 add 9, the first chord of our 2-5-1 in D. Then for the next chord, I used a common jazz technique called a tritone substitution. So instead of playing A7, I substituted it for a chord built from the note 3 whole tones above the A, aka a tritone, so an E flat 7. It's a little complex to explain here, but essentially it gives us a chromatic route through the 2-5-1. So I used an E7 add 9 chord, using this fingering we've seen a lot already in the video. So we've got E minor 7 add 9 down to E flat 7 add 9. Then for the D chord, I used a variant of the C shape which gives 2 chords in one, the first being the 6-9 chord. So back to C, and I'm using my second finger to play the root, and then a little bar on the D and G strings, which gives us an E, major 3rd, and an A, our 6th, and then 3rd fret on the B string, a D, our 9th. So this is a 6-9 chord. It's still got enough colour for jazz, but is pretty neutral. But what we can do then is turn it into a major 7 add 9, using the little finger on the 4th fret of the G string like this. And hammering on there creates a really cool sound. We can also use the barred note on the high E if we want, to create more of an out sound, as this is the sharp 11, the Lydian note. So the basic progression goes E minor 7 add 9, E flat 7 add 9, D 6-9 to D major 7 add 9 to D Lydian kind of thing. Then I used the Hendrix chord as a B7 at the 2nd fret to turn around back to the E minor, but this time I allowed my little finger to also bar the high E at the 3rd fret, giving a flat 13, so a B dominant 7, sharp 9, flat 13. Then back through E minor, E flat, D. And then ending with what we call a backdoor approach to the D chord using chromatic 6-9 chords. So C 6-9, D flat 6-9, and then D 6-9 with a little touch on that Lydian sharp 11 for extra jazz. So here it is again, and just watch how every chord in this progression is derived from that C shape. So that's the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.